The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events, the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, see everything we do. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air Magazine. We're here every day at 3 o'clock to get you through all these crazy times. Crazy like the holiday season times now, right? Anyway, we have a terrific video for you today. It's called Mastering Trees with the great Paul Kratter.
This is Paul Kratter, and I'm going to be doing a demo for you guys on painting a tree. I have been an artist all my life. For 22 years, I was an illustrator up until 2002, and then I discovered plein air painting, and I've been doing that ever since. I have a strong sense of composition and design. We are going to start from the very beginning at the sketch stage and develop that using 3 values. I will show you how to design a tree with much more conviction and character. I will be talking about atmosphere and man-made objects in the scene as well. Of course, color will be an important aspect of this. If you'd like to paint along with me, you certainly can. So let's get started. I'm going to start off with the materials that I use. Even the easel. This is a portable easel. It's mounted on a camera tripod. The nice thing about this, it's on a ball joint, which means I can level this if the surface is uneven that I'm standing on. It's lightweight. It bounces a little bit, but it's perfect for outdoor painting. So my paints are fairly standard, except for a couple of these first 2. This is Turner Yellow, and I just like the color. It's nothing that's so unique and different. It's like Cad Yellow Medium, Cad Yellow Light, somewhere in between there. One of my favorite colors is India Orange. Yellow Orange is another beautiful color. Cad Orange. You'll notice too that I don't squirt out that much paint. I've done this forever, since I was in college, squirt out just a little bit. I'm not cheap with my paints, but that's just how I like to do it. Cad Red, Alizarin Crimson, a cooler red. My purple is Dioxazine Violet. Dioxazine Purple works just as well, just depends on the brand name and how strong it is. Ultramarine Blue, this is deep. And then Cobalt Blue. I've always put them on this left-hand side, just it's convenient for me. Chromium Green Deep. Phthalo green is nice, but it's very, very strong, and you don't see that color in nature very often. I've added King's Blue to my palette. It's just a kind of a mixing cool color. Kind of saves a little time. I don't use it all that often, but it's a fun color to use. Burnt Umber, this is my drawing color. I rarely use it for mixing, but it's what I block in my painting with. Since I do a lot of trees, and I think most of them have a fair amount of sap green in it, that's one of my major colors. And then titanium white. And we obviously go through a lot of that, so I squirt a lot of that paint out. My brushes are, I use a variety of, they're all the same. These are all brights, variety from 2 to 10. Now, if I'm going to do a much bigger painting, I might use a 12. I might use a 14, but basically for this size painting, I'm going to use 8s and 10s at this stage. I rarely use the small little 2 brush except to draw, and then sometimes at the very end to put in small little details. These are brights. The usual flats have longer hairs. I don't really care for those. They're a little bit too flimsy. These are a little bit stiffer. And then I also have just an old brush, and this is what I usually prime the canvas with. It's beaten up. It's got a lot of loose hairs. And it's nice for different textures, kind of just to start off the painting. I will use this occasionally if I want some really thick paint or some texture. And then this is a hog brush, and it's very unique. It really just looks like a paintbrush where the hairs have just been cut off. And again, you can load up the brush and get some thicker brush strokes with this. This is a new brush I discovered that I like a lot. So this is kind of at the end of the process, I might use that. The other things I have on my canvas here or on my easel, just a drawing pencil. To clean the palette, I have a flat edge razor blade, a palette knife. I don't really use this that much. Sometimes it's to sharpen an edge. Sometimes it's to do a roof line. Sometimes it's a little texture. Most of the time it's just something that sits up on my easel and is just a decorative device. This unique tin cup has been around for about 10 years, and it's caked with oil and terp and medium, and it looks like a piece of art. And right now all it has is terp in there. I don't have any medium. It's not really necessary for painting. This is a linen panel. It's mounted on gator board. It's got a nice weave to it. The texture is not too great on this. In fact, this might be a portrait linen, and it's perfect for what I like to do. You can scrub it. You can work on the canvas a little bit. And it certainly takes opaques very, very well. And I think that's it for my supplies, other than paper towels. All right, it's time to do a demo, and probably the most important part of what I'm going to do does not involve the paint, does not involve a brush, but it involves a sketchbook and a ballpoint pen. This is nothing more than a cheap black pen, but it is what it makes some of my work unique, at least the starting point. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a square format, and what I usually do is a quick square on here. And people think that a ballpoint pen is it's permanent, it's black, but you can sketch lightly with this, and so you'll get a light gray to start with before I start bearing down. All right, so first thing I want to do is establish where is the horizon line. That's the height my eye is at in this painting. It can be anywhere along here. It can even be out of the page, but it is the height, and mine's about 5 feet high. And so that's the first thing I want to establish. Now I'm looking for big graphic shapes. I have 4 pieces of reference up here. The close-up of the barn far away. Here it is again. Here it is again in the scene. I like this great big tree trunk here, but it's a very dark eucalyptus tree. and I want to have this lighter version. I'm just replacing that. So basically, I'm doing my own Photoshop. I'm combining 4 photos from, I think this is from 2 or 3 different days. An overcast day, a couple of sunny days, a close-up. I didn't just, this one I had to drive closer to get the details here. But this is the main scene that I'm working from. So I'm going to have this one eucalyptus tree that's up in here, this one that's closer to us, that's leaning to the right a little bit. There's a branch that's somewhere in here. It's basically this that's coming off to the left-hand side to kind of counterbalance this. We have a road that diminishes back here. And then I'm seeing some groupings of foliage here. What I love is what's happening here with this branch overhanging, and then some foliage here. And these are just light sketches. And I'm trying to group some of this foliage. I will change this, but it starts getting my head around that this is, these are groups of leaves, and they're relatively oval shape. I will try to make each one just a little bit different. There's a group of eucalyptus that are back here. There's a barn. There's another little building. Another group of trees back here, and a mountainside. And I'm kind of just drawing through all that. So that's pretty much my start to a very linear application of this ballpoint pen, but this is my start to how I start putting together my my drawing. So I'm going to start bearing down a little bit more on my pen. And what I'm thinking here as I start to develop this is, one of the things obviously is composition, but is this white? Is it gray? Is it black? And this pen does not, I'm not going to bear down and make it just jet black. I'm going to make it a fairly dark gray, but in this composition, it's going to represent black. So these can be fairly quick. If I'm on location and the light is changing rapidly, I might sketch this in 3 or 4 minutes. If this is in the studio, I can work a little bit slower. One thing I want to make sure as I'm doing this is to tell the audience, tell myself, where is the light coming from? Light's coming from the right-hand side. Basically, it's going to be 1/3 light, 2/3 shadow. That's a totally made-up amount. It's indicative of the light that's probably in here. But it tells me, and it tells the audience, what time of day it is, where the light is coming from. And I try to stay very consistent with that. So I'm blocking this in, starting with the foreground here. I also love this branch that comes across here. It goes out here. And that has a lot of character for me. And so I want to make sure, especially in the sketch that it's in here, there's a couple others that go up into the canopy and then out of the page. But that's what, for me, with these strong trunks, and these dark, which will be dark shapes in here, that will give it character along with these very vertical elements, the trunks of the eucalyptus tree. So I just start graying this in, start cross-hatching. And slowly I build up a set of 3 or 4 or 5 variations of grays. What I'm trying to represent in this is it white, is it gray, is it black? And it's okay to have a couple different grays, but you want to have a good dark. And then the white of the board, of the paper, that's the white. I don't put a light value over that at all. It's just the white of the paper. This is a little harder to articulate. I also think about how I'm going to paint this as I'm doing this, and the articulation, the part that's difficult about that is sometimes it's what am I going to eliminate? What elements are important here? As I'm drawing this in, I'm also looking at my reference material, or if I'm on location, I'm looking at things. Do I put the mailbox in? Do I put the distant barn in? The telephone pole? Of course, the barn, I do want that in there. But these, the road. Do I put the yellow stripe in? Any of these things, I'm kind of thinking about that as I'm sketching this in, and so it's a very I would say it's a meditative part of the process, but it's a time to kind of figure out what I'm doing. There's a light that's hitting this side of the eucalyptus, and it's casting a little bit of shadow, and so this part's light in here. Sometimes if I'm on location and the sun moves, I can refer to my sketch and be able to tell, where the light was coming from. And it's such an important part of doing the sketch is I can refer to my what I've done, so that throughout the process I know what's important in the painting, and so I'm not changing as the scene changes, as the light changes throughout. Don't chase the light is probably a phrase that most plein air artists hear in the back of their head, is don't, as the light changes, that you start changing your sketch. Keep it consistent. Whatever you thought was important sketch-wise, design-wise, shadow-wise, keep after that throughout the whole process. So one thing design-wise I'm doing here, this eucalyptus grove in the background is further back. We're also seeing the entire tree. There's another group of trees here, and that will help delineate the shape of this barn. Another water tower building of some sort. This area, this full tree, tells me what this eucalyptus tree is like, even though I've cut off the top of it. Design-wise, you don't have to see the full tree. You're seeing it here. So I like doing that in my compositions, is to crop in. How close can you crop in to a scene and still be able to tell what it is? So whether you're looking through, if I was really close up underneath here looking through the two trees, that could be a nice composition. The other thing that I'll do, depending on what shapes I've designed, is a lot of times I then come back and bear down on my pen just a little bit more to design these shapes just a little bit better. And it's to re-emphasize these lines. I'm not doing this to make a beautiful sketch. This is a working sketch. It's kind of funny. I always think of the a square format when I can't decide if the scene should be a horizontal or vertical. And if I can't decide, then quite often a square format is the right composition. It's challenging. I think that when you do that, you have to make sure that the horizon line's a little bit different, lower or higher. You just have to break up your shapes quite a bit. I am eventually going to put some clouds in here, but I'm not going to. I don't think it's necessary because they're so light that I put them in my sketch. All right, so now I'm ready to transfer this to the board and start painting. But that is really one of the most important parts of the whole process is your thumbnail sketch. The next step now is to do the demo. And the first thing that I do is whether I'm going to work on a in this particular case, I'm going to work on a prime canvas. So the one unique thing I do not have out on the canvas right now, this is a fast matte, and it's titanium white with, I'm not even sure what properties are in this. It dries pretty fast. It's an opaque white, and I just like it to quickly, if I have a couple days for this to dry, I can paint on this canvas. It's also a nice texture with just a little bit of the white in here to there's a little grip to it, and it's different than just painting straight on this linen board. So all I'm doing, this is very liquidy, and all I used was India yellow orange and a little bit of the burnt umber and a lot of terp. And I like the texture. There's just a little bit of grip. It actually wears down your brush pretty fast. It's not like sandpaper, but it has a certain texture that's very nice to work on. This is also excellent if you want to paint over an old painting. You might sand it down and then put this fast matte over it, and you can tint it. And it gives it you now have a nice surface to work on. It's not, obviously, if you have another painting that's on here and you've covered it up with a white paint, it's changed the nature of that surface. But anyhow, this is something that I like to use to paint on. That's just a little bit unique. And one thing with just toning the canvas, it's just gives, if you leave any holidays or if you don't quite cover up the canvas, rather than having white show through, you have kind of this nice cream color. And because I'm painting something that's very warm, that it has warm greens in it, it is this color may show through, and even if I cover it completely, it's a nice base color to have. That is just awesome. All right, that's it. Ready to paint. All right, the next step, we've gotten all our materials out. I've done my sketch. My board's primed. I'm ready to go. This is go time. And so what's really important here is to transfer this drawing. It seems like such a small little part to your painting, but you've done your composition. You've put your shapes in. You've made 5 or 6 good graphic shapes out of this. You've spent some time. I do it fairly fast, but I'm transferring this not from looking at my reference material, but from my sketch. So again, I want to establish, where is that horizon line? Somewhere down in here. I'm using a pencil. This is the only time throughout this whole process that I have use my pencil. Here's the road going up here, and all I'm looking at is my sketch here. Here's my fairly vertical eucalyptus tree. There's a couple of bigger branches that come off here at an angle. I'm just starting to indicate just some of these bigger groups of foliage. I've got this nice big branch that comes off of here, comes up into here. I may have it come off the right side of the page. I'm not sure at this point. That's not a critical part of the painting. I've got another eucalyptus tree here. It's a little further back. This one comes in front. There's some foliage and stuff here. So now I've got this major area. There's the big tree, the 2 big trunks, and I've got a small barn that's back here. Here's my furthest eucalyptus grove back here. Here's the roof of the barn. I've got a tree back here. There's a water tower in here. And another shed, another outbuilding of some sort here. There's a hillside back here that's pretty far back. Try not to get it in the middle of the page. I can just use my finger to figure this out. So it seems like this is such a, it's not a terribly important part, but it really is. And I'll explain that I've done a sketch here with a ballpoint pen. I've done a pencil drawing, and now I'm going to block this in quickly with my umber block in. And so it's 3 times that I've drawn this, and that it just shows you how important the drawing is. This is when I can make changes. This is when I'm checking my drawing, my perspective, my general shapes. I can still make small changes as I go, but this is my blueprint for what I'm doing on the painting. All right, on to the next step. Now I'm going to block this in with a burnt umber drawing, and primarily I'm following my pencil lines, but this is also the time where I start making some adjustments. So am I dropping the horizon line a little bit? Do I need to raise it? These are all small little things that I'm starting to make some, quote, artistic changes and adjustments to. So this is just burnt umber, and this is relatively a straight eucalyptus tree. Now, if it leans a little bit, that's okay. They don't all grow perfectly straight. What I do like, in combination with a few different photos and reference material, I love that there's a really nice branch that comes off at quite an angle. And there is another one back here. So I like that, this strong vertical here. There's another tree that's a little further back. And then I'm going to start designing and developing some of these groups of foliage. And these can change a little bit as I'm painting and figuring all this out, but I'm trying to establish that I have some different varieties, bigger general circles, spheres, ovals, groupings that are hanging out from these branches that are semi-connected to a nice branch, let's say. I'm also holding my brush almost in the middle, and I'm rolling it a little bit as I need to get a different edge. And it's just a way to have control with the brush and yet also have a light touch. I happen to like, I don't paint as many circles and spheres as I do rectangles and squares and triangles. So I like putting edges on my paintings, even these organic shapes. And it's just me, it's part of my design nature. And I will go back later and soften up some of those edges and make them rounder and softer. But it helps me as a designer make better shapes out of what I'm painting. So I've got this nice diagonal here with a little notch in here. The horizon line, I think, should be a little lower. And yes, that's tangent with this bunch of foliage, so that's something I can correct right now. Sometimes at the very end of the painting, I'll just measure this. What's the height here versus here, and just use my finger and know that, oh, I might have to raise that just a little bit. The base of this eucalyptus is somewhere in here. This one's a little further back. I think I'm going to put there might be another branch in here, another group of trees back there. There's some overhang here of some foliage. Here's this back eucalyptus. And it has such a great shape. I have painted this ranch numerous times, up close, far away, different angles. But back to composition, the rest of the tree is way up here. Do we have to see the tops of this tree? Do we always have to include the full thing? We see what this eucalyptus, what they look like fully from this one back here. So I think just compositionally this is stronger, having something that is this great big focus of this tree, looking past this tree to this ranch scene back here. Sometimes elements like this organic shape help frame the barn and help frame these. If this is a lighter element and this is a little bit darker, that silhouetted shape may show up better. So those are little design things that help you show off what you're trying to paint, to help orchestrate a better silhouette, let's say. Just dropping this hillside back just a little bit. The pencil drawing, by the time I start painting on here, is going to disappear. It's not going to muddy the paint. If it does, it's ever so slightly. Now, I don't usually paint in all the fence posts, because when I paint this green field back here, I'm going to put the fence, I'm not going to paint around each fence post, but sometimes I'll just just indicate these, a few of these, so that it looks like they're going back into perspective, just to give myself an idea of where these fence posts are. Now, light's coming from here. It's going to cause a shadow. Here, this tree is going to cause a shadow. It probably is going to combine with that tree, just to get those basic shapes coming in there. So compositionally, I've got this great big shape, dark shape here in the foreground. The atmosphere in here is going to push this scene where the horizon line is quite lower. I want to make sure that these are blue grays and maybe in the 5 value range as I push them back. We've got a really distant hillside back here. I probably will put some clouds in here, but I want to make that feel like it's really going back into perspective. All right, now I'm ready to attack the next stage, which is just to start laying in some shadow shapes and get some color on here. All right, the next stage here is to start painting, start putting some color down here. A couple of different things. This is an important step to go back, to go back and look at the painting. Does anything pop out that you go, I made a tangent, there's something funny about this, the drawing is off. So I will back up, take a look, and just kind of look at my painting and just say, okay, have I captured what I want to? Is there anything that's glaring? No, it's darn nearly perfect. So come up here. The other thing that I do, this is out of camera view, but I always take my sketchbook and drop it at my feet and have it there as something I can refer to. And the reason for that is, when I back up and when I'm painting and looking at what I'm doing, I want to make sure that I'm capturing here what I initially thought about in my sketch, that there's a strong silhouetted shape, and the impact that I first saw on this, I've captured in my sketch. So sometimes there's details in here that I need to see, but most of the time it's just to kind of refresh my mind. That's what I saw, and that's what's important. So I'm going to make up a a greenish. This is sap green and alizarin crimson, and I'm going to block in quickly my shadow shapes of the foreground. I already have a tone for the sky. It's not going to be in this color range, but it's going to be in this light value stage. So sometimes that's the first thing I'll start with, but in this case I want to start with my shadow shapes. So this is a number 10 bright brush. My paint is fairly liquidy, meaning all I have is terp, no medium at all. And I'm just going to fairly quickly start blocking this in. Now, a lot of these brush strokes are they're not following form, meaning they're not really following the path of where how the foliage is growing. That happens mainly when I get to the light side of whatever object I'm painting, and I'll get to that as we go. But so these brush strokes are much more, all I'm trying to do is cover the panel. Get some color on here, some value, and block in this big silhouetted shape. The other thing that's really important throughout is to draw with the brush. This is not just fill in with paint and not draw anymore. So I'm constantly redrawing a shape that I see, re-emphasizing it. So what colors are these? I can hear in the background somebody at home. This was a little bit of a dirty brush. I used it earlier today. Sap green and alizarin crimson. I did touch into this chromium green. I did touch this blue. I might touch the orange a little bit. So it's not a dirty color. It's a rich color that is what I'm mainly concerned with. Is it a dark value? Is it a 7 or 8 at this stage? Still pretty thin. Oops. Even these big areas of foliage that are back here, I want some of these groupings to come forward. I want to have some that are overlapping the trunk of the tree, and I want to have some deeper recesses. So even at this stage, I could have just painted this entire area just as a dark, but I'm just starting to set up a little bit of change in here where I have some areas that are coming forward and some that are receding a little bit further. I want to have a couple areas where the foliage goes in front of the trunk. So I'm still just working in the shadow area of this eucalyptus tree. Still relatively transparent. There's just a tad bit of white in here. The other thing that I like to do, I like nuances of color that might be in the shadows that you really don't see unless you really get close to the painting. So as I'm starting to develop this and get some colors in here, there's a little red, there's a little blue. I'll push these a little bit further as I go, so that there is a reward when you come up and look at the painting up close, that it's not just about this big impact, but something up close that you might see some nuances of color, some little color shifts. Those are what at the end make the painting so interesting, but you have to start that, at least for me, a little bit early. So I'm still just putting these shadow shapes in, but I'm also thinking about, I want a little bit of some nuances here. These big areas in here that I've left open are the lighter side of this the big eucalyptus tree. And I really think there's a couple ways to work here. I could just paint the full silhouette with a light, a medium color, let's say, a medium value, and just do the silhouette. The other way is just to paint all the shadow shapes first. And in this particular painting, that's what I'm doing, is just blocking in all the shadow shapes. Again, light's coming from here, from the right-hand side and the top. There may be some spots of light that hit this. I can add that later, but this is further away from this light source. These are kind of crescent shapes. Suggest if these are spheres, if 1/3 of this is light, you're going to kind of have this crescent shape, as if there's a sphere, a ball that's for each one of these overlapping areas. That's how I look at the groups of foliage. It's a bunch of styrofoam balls put together to make this tree. Again, I'm just redefining some of these edges. It's really easy to lose your painting, lose the drawing. And so if there's parts that I lose a little bit, I don't mind coming back and just redrawing them. You can't draw too much on your painting. All right, that's the main shadow area of this great big eucalyptus tree. Let's block in the shadow shape of the main trunks of this eucalyptus. I'm using a little bit of purple, a little bit of India yellow orange. I want a warmish light side or shadow side to this tree. Now I'm going to leave the light. I'm not going to put any lights. It might be one of the last things I do. The light shining on the trunks of the tree, but this just starts giving me just a little bit of what's happening light-wise on this tree. So in this particular case, there's this light that's hitting this 1/3 edge of this tree, and I'm not concerned at this point of putting in a core shadow. I just want a shadow color here. And then I can start making some comparisons. All right, so I've got a little light shaft here, maybe a little bit here. This branch is going further back into the canopy. And so I want to lose it a little bit more. So just going to make it a little darker. And especially right up against the edge of this part of the eucalyptus tree. And then this one is also back here. So we've got a couple of main interesting trunks, branches. And this one can kind of come out of the back of this foliage that's coming forward. I may change that if it feels like it's a tangent there. And then I'm going to also make here's this eucalyptus. That's just a little further back. Now, you may get some of this foliage here may be causing a shadow across the eucalyptus. And it's just starting to kind of build up this, that it's not just this. There's other things that could be causing shadows and light. So this group of foliage is causing a shadow right here as this goes up underneath here. So it's a kind of a slow build up. Now with the same brush for my shadow colors in here, I'm going to clean it slightly. I'm using a really dirty paper towel. But I like neutral colors. So this next group of foliage back here, this atmospheric area, is a blue-gray. And I'm more interested at this stage in getting the value right than the color right. So what's important about this? Really, it's about value. And so I'm trying, yes, it wants to be cooler, and it's a bluish purple, and I could tell you it has dioxazine violet, I can tell you it has ultra blue in it, a little cobalt, but I didn't clean the brush all that well, so there's a little bit of this color in here. There's a little that sap green and a little red. So sometimes the colors are very neutralized, and it's hard to describe that it's not just one particular color. It may predominantly be something, but it's going to be difficult with my paintings to absolutely follow through. I can say that it's predominantly this color, but it's going to have some other little variations in it. And like I said, I like neutral colors. All right, so here I've blocked in a couple of organic shapes of trees back here. Are there 5, 6, 8 trees? I don't know. There's going to be this one eucalyptus tree here. I'm not even sure. I know this wasn't a eucalyptus tree, but something similar in shape, a little bit smaller in size. But sometimes these organic shapes are really great to help bring out something, bring out this man-made shape. So even if I push it way back and I don't have a big contrast, this just by chiseling in this shape, I may get a nice silhouette that helps pop that just a little bit. At this stage, there's a little shadow underneath here. I'm going to use the same color, the same value. There's a roof, an eave here. I may draw this in, block in a little bit of a doorway there. There may be stuff that's happening in front of the barn, hay bales or a fence line or something, but sometimes I'm just trying to block in some of my drawing at this stage. All right, still working just in shadow. I have not I have not done anything with the light side. It's strictly the shadows that I'm seeing. Even the distant hills back here, I'm mixing up a cobalt blue, titanium white, a little of that sky blue, king's blue. And I'm more interested that I get this value right than the color. It's going to be close, but I can make adjustments to it. It's far easier to shift a color because you have the value right than if the value's wrong. So I'm looking for the big mass. I've stayed with the same brush. And that you already start to see that this really recedes, that this is way in the foreground, this is pretty far in the background. I think now I'll probably, let's start working with the light side.
Landscape painters love trees. It's one of Mother Nature's greatest gifts to artists. But when your trees are wrong, your viewer can tell immediately. When you're painting trees, you're painting a portrait of a tree. Every tree is different, each with its own characteristics and unique colors. For something that seems like it should be simple, trees can often be a source of frustration. Compose poorly and the entire painting will be off the mark. So, to guide you through the process of understanding how to paint trees, we sought out a painter who has done beautiful paintings of just about every kind of tree. To really understand how to better paint trees, turn to artist Paul Kratter. In this instructional video, Mastering Trees, Paul will show you how to do just that. A longtime illustrator and a plein air painter since 2002, Paul has a strong foundation in design and composition. There's nobody better to show you how using strong graphic shapes is a key factor when painting trees. Paint along with Paul as he shows you his simple and logical system for giving trees more character. He'll show you his steps to make trees easier and use them to create a solid foundation. Never again will you shy away from including certain trees because you're just not sure how you'll pull it off. Your trees will be believable, have the proper proportion, right light and shadow, perfect sky holes, and feel like they're realistic. In addition to a complete start-to-finish painting, we've included a bonus video with Paul showing you how to paint a variety of individual types of trees, because you have to approach them all differently.
And again, it really is the silhouetted shape that's always important.
Paul Kratter simplifies the process of painting trees and landscapes. His positive, lighthearted teaching style will encourage you to relax, gain confidence, and have fun with your painting. Available on DVD and digitally to view on your computer, tablet, or phone. Order Mastering Trees with Paul Kratter today and be on your way to painting better trees and better landscapes.
Well, that is Paul Kratter, and the video is called Mastering Trees. It's one of our best sellers. You can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, we have a special discount code today only in the comments section. Make sure you pick that up. It would make a great Christmas gift too. I'm just saying, Christmas gift for yourself, right? Also, let's get right to our interview with Paul Kratter. Welcome to Interviews with the Artists. I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Plein Air Magazine, and what we do here is we bring in some of the greatest artists in the world and kind of get inside their heads. Today we have Paul Kratter, who's a California impressionist. Would you say impressionist?
Sure.
Okay. and we're going to get inside Paul's head a little bit. So welcome to Interviews with the Artists.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, finally.
Nice to meet you, finally. How long have we known each other?
A long time. Well, you lived, 10 minutes from me, so I did. That's where I first met you, was out painting in the San Francisco Bay Area.
So do you remember that day?
Vividly.
Vividly. I think that day we got kicked off some property. Do you remember?
That's happened a couple of times.
So if I remember it correctly, well, maybe tell me how you remember it.
Was there beer involved or something?
There probably was beer involved.
I think a group of us probably went out somewhere near Mount Diablo to paint, Briones Park maybe, and I can't even remember. Charles White might have been there.
I think that if I remember correctly, California Art Club chapter had a painting event at my house.
That's correct, we did.
And I don't know if that's the first time we met or not, but we lived on Briones Park.
Yeah.
And so we all went out and painted at Briones. But the time I'm remembering is we had met up in up near where Richard Lindenberg lives, I can't remember the the town, but I remember there was a barn and a big tree, and it was you, me, Charles White, some other folks, and a couple of them went off to paint across the street, and a farmer came out with a shotgun and kicked them off their property. I don't know if you remember that.
I was not the one who they went after, but
yeah. So
but a barn and a tree. Yes, I have painted that scene before. Yeah,
that's basically all you paint.
Yeah. I've graduated from there, but yes.
Well, you're an amazing barn and tree painter. I fell in love with your work years ago, and it's really been fun to watch your career because you're becoming nationally known. Your work has just exploded. You're winning awards, and you're selling a lot of paintings, and you're in some great galleries. So congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been
So
fun.
how did this all begin for you?
Honestly, the plein air part of it began overnight. I was an illustrator on Friday, and Saturday I was a plein air painter. So
Okay. So before you go there, I want to go way back. When was this first interest in art expressed?
I've always been an artist. So I won some kindergarten award through the Chronicle newspaper, and I got a key to the San Francisco Zoo.
Really?
Yeah. So you put the little key in, it tells you what the animal's doing or something, and that's been the best award I've ever gotten.
You still have it?
I don't have the key, but I know where it is. It's in my heart still.
It's in your heart.
Yeah. But so I just drew and painted all my life, and my mom and dad just encouraged me. They had no really artistic talent per se, and yet they allowed me to do that. I loved sports, I loved nature, and those were the two things that I would get Sports Illustrated and copy the cover of that, or
Really?
National Geographic, and then up through high school, it started to get real. That this is what I wanted to do. And when I graduated high school, I went to a junior college, San Mateo, College of San Mateo, and got an AA degree in graphic arts.
And what year would that have been?
Oh, back 74 to 76.
Okay.
And then I went down to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
That's a great school.
It's a great school, and that made all the difference in the world to me. I met my wife there, who's also an artist at Pixar Animation Studios, and so we graduated in 1980. She went on to work at Disney. I was a freelance illustrator for 22 years.
So the freelance or the illustration world changed a lot because
It did.
I hear the story a lot of times from illustrators who, they're doing illustration by hand, and all of a sudden the computer
Digital
came in,
world, yeah.
and you had all this clip art and all these other things. Did that impact your life?
Totally. Not only did did my income start to go down because there just were fewer and fewer jobs to be had, I thought the prices started going down. So I kind of made a little diversions and tried to do some wildlife work for a little while without much success. And I started doing some children's books, and they were long-term projects. They were fun. They were usually wildlife-oriented. And then I hit a home run with a book called The ABCs of the Rainforest, of the Living Rainforest, and that was a self-penned book.
So you wrote the book and you illustrated
Yeah,
it?
it was an ABC book. So yes, my writing was, I know the 26 letters.
So A is for what?
Anteater.
Anteater. What was B?
Okay, butterfly, morpho butterfly, but.
Okay, well, we won't go through the whole
Thank you,
alphabet,
thank you.
but I think randomly, what was Z would be too easy.
A Zorro. It's a dog-like creature from South America.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's
The hardest one was X. There's a little brown bird called a xenops, and that's the one that is kind of a tricky one to find.
Now, can you find that book still? Is it around?
It's not. You probably can find it on
eBay?
Yeah.
The ABCs.
Yeah. You can't even write me and get a copy because I only have a couple left for grandkids when they arrive.
And what is that happening anytime soon?
Not that we know of officially.
So I want to now go to, you were an illustrator, making a living as an illustrator, and you became a plein air painter overnight.
Oh, pretty much overnight, or at least my interest happened that way. So I went to the very first Sonoma plein air event, and that was 15, 16 years ago. And there were a group of Pixar artists that were invited. John Lasseter was the one who was one of the big sponsors. So my wife was in the event. She would go up in the afternoons and paint a little bit. A great friend of mine, Bill Cohn, was in it. Ernesto Nemesio, another fine artist. A couple of my friends from the illustration world were in it. I went up to, my wife goes, "What do you want to do Friday night? Would you like to come up, to this gala? Free wine, I'll take you up.
Yeah,
I'll even drive." And I said, "That's great." So we go up for, this is our date night. And honestly, I really did fall in love with the work. And I remember going up to some guy and I go, there was a little house that had a pinkish tone to it. And I said, "How did you come up with that color scheme? And why did you work in this area?" And he goes, "This was my focal point." And he goes, "This was the area I knew was going to change the most because of the light. And I had to capture that first." And I just thought, that's awesome. John Poon was in the event. He won Artist Choice. And he was a student of mine at the Academy of Art years before. So I knew a handful of people. I went home on Saturday. I went to the art supply store and bought a set of oils. And I went out Sunday in the East Bay Hills and did my first plein air painting.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So I think we have something in common because I was living out there at the time, and I had just discovered plein air painting, and I didn't really know anything about it. I went to my first event attending as a consumer was the Scene on the Strait in Martinez.
Oh yeah, that was a fun.
My second event was that event. And I don't know if it was first year. I think it was the second year. I'm not entirely sure. I remember everybody had these big Monet hats that they had handed out for the artists or something. But that's when I had decided that I was going to do Plein Air Magazine. I guess I'd been painting for a year or two, and then because I made my living as a publisher, I thought, well, this is a natural. There's all these people. And so I actually went to Sonoma and I was passing out flyers
remember that.
For the new.
And I remember talking to you saying, this is a great idea. I would love to get a magazine that was focused on just plein air painting. And I do believe Edgar Payne was on that very first.
That's right.
First cover.
That's right. Yeah. So I made a dummy cover for my promotional materials that had Camille Priswatic on it, because I had been studying with Camille. Mm-hmm. And then, Edgar Payne was the very first cover. They sell for about $75 on eBay now because they're hard to find. I'm
not selling mine, so I still have that.
I don't think I even have one. I have the second one, but I don't think I have the first. And
$100, and maybe I'll
you'll take $100?
Yeah.
You could have said $1,000. Yeah. I would have paid. No. I think that so you became suddenly a plein air artist. Now, your wife was already a plein air artist.
She wasn't, but she used to do backgrounds for Disney films way back, right when we graduated from art school. And that was her first job. This interview is about me, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could talk about her if you want to.
I will. But she, a lot of the stuff that she does at Pixar are the environments, indoors, outdoors. But really, she was much more of a studio painter than an outdoor painter. But for this event, she did go up in the afternoon and do these tiny little, almost thumbnail paintings. Uh-huh. And they were neat, and I remember having to frame that up for her for the gala and the next day. But like I said, I just fell in love with the immediacy of working fast versus research and tracing paper drawings and going to the clients and having stuff approved. And
yeah. So for the people who are watching this, maybe have not tried plein air painting. Maybe they're studio painters, maybe they're just learning. What are the benefits of plein air painting?
The biggest thing is you're outdoors, you are seeing it live, you are not reacting to a photograph that's holding still, and you're in the moment, and it's nice when it's beautiful out and 70 degrees and you're in shorts and a t-shirt. When it's cold and you're in Yosemite and the sun hasn't come up and it's 20-something degrees and you're shivering, there's that moment you're trying to capture something. So I like it to compare it to live music versus studio musician. You play live, you are going to make mistakes. You do get a reaction right away from the audience. There's no audience watching me paint, but you are working in that moment. So you can fix mistakes, you can make changes, but it's spontaneous.
When I first learned plein air painting, I had been studio painting. Wasn't very good at it, but good enough that I could make something look fairly decent.
Yeah.
But when I went outside, everything fell apart. I remember the first time I went out, I took a studio easel out to the golf course, a box of stuff, a chair, a card table, an easel, everything. And I took a full-size canvas, and it kept blowing off of the easel. Yeah. And of course there were bugs and other things, the light was changing. You were an experienced illustrator. Was it difficult for you to adapt to a plein air environment?
At first, and I did the same thing. I had 2 folding chairs, just like these are wooden chairs, but just 2 chairs. I put my easel there, and I actually painted on my lap because I really didn't know better. And as an illustrator, I painted on a flat top table, and I either sat or stood and leaned over it and worked that way. So I thought it was natural just to paint on your lap, but it was hard because you were always looking up, and it wasn't that convenient to have this chair. And I remember seeing, I think it was Jay Moore, I don't even know where he's from, had an ad in probably Plein Air magazine, and I liked the setup that he had, the easel. And I had never worked this way. I really had worked always flat. And so I remember calling him up and saying, I love your work. I think it's fabulous. What kind of easel do you have? And he told me what he had, and I thought, it sounds great. It was a company out of Wyoming, and I called him up, ordered that, made all the difference in the world. I did sit for the first year, maybe couple of years, and then the one time I couldn't see over a fence, I telescoped my tripod up higher and stood to be able to see what I was going to paint, and that made a big difference, being able to back up, and I just thought, I'm not going to sit ever again.
Well, there's no right or wrong. I mean, a lot of people do sit. Sometimes I sit just because I'm tired, or, especially if I've painted 2 or 3 paintings in a day. I want to do a 4th one, I'm kind of wiped out. When you're an illustrator, I assume you're painting kind of tight, and maybe you're using gouache or something?
I used a lot of different mediums. I started off really as a pen and ink artist, and then I did a little bit of gouache. I did a fair amount of watercolor and a lot of acrylic and no oil.
Right. So the transition to oil and the transition of standing up, you're a pretty loose painter now.
Fair, yeah. Somewhere in between, yeah.
Your work doesn't look tightly rendered. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but so. What took you there? Was there a particular method that you learned or way that
I think I went from finer round brushes, and I don't know what made me, I switched to brights, which are stubby little flats basically, and I just said, I'm gonna paint with these. I remember making a conscious effort to say, I'm gonna be a different artist than I was as an illustrator. Yes, there's a big learning curve jumping from one medium to some oil that you can, I can't say you can erase, but you can scrape down, you can layer it. It's not like watercolor where you got to plan your lights and leaving the whites of the paper to show through. You really can work pretty fast, and you can get 2 or 3 layers on there, and it was I was working on wood panels. I was gessoing them and then sanding them down. So it was a little bit unique, and the brush strokes really showed up, especially with those brights.
So you made your living as an illustrator, and now you make your living as a painter.
I make my living because I'm still married to my wife. And I help pay for vacations and all the other fun stuff that we do, but thankfully, my wife still works and still loves me.
So that's what we call golden handcuffs.
Something like that, yes. And
but
she has me.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And you have her. That's a nice arrangement.
It is. Yeah. I'm a lucky. She tells me that you have no idea how lucky you are. She says, yes, I do. You tell me every single day.
Yes, ma'am. Well, so you're doing the plein air circuit. You're doing some shows.
I do a lot. I did a lot, and they're fun to travel. It's to go to the East Coast and paint in Easton is an awesome experience. Hot and muggy, but the competition is great, and I love competing. I love that the sport part of me likes. It's not I'm going to be better than you. It's I want to paint alongside you and be competitive, and I want to do my best work because there's 30, 40, at that event 50 other artists that are all top artists. But San Angelo plein air event is awesome. Sonoma plein air is my favorite one because it's local, and I love that. But I'm sticking around California a little bit more and less the long distance travel.
So what's your best advice for somebody who wants to break into plein air painting?
Find a pal.
Find a pal.
If you're going to go out in nature somewhere, there's whether it's your dog going with you or finding a couple other people to go out, but make a point to do it a couple days a week. Join an art club. I'm a co-chair of the San Francisco chapter of the California Art Club, and we have 350 members in our chapter.
Do you really?
We do.
Back when I was a member, there were about 20 of us, I think.
Well, I'd say there's probably 100 active people, and we get 50 or more that show up at a painting event, a paint out. So those are great things to join, and there's art associations usually in your neighborhood. Those are great to join and start meeting some people. But
community is really important,
it is.
And that's why something like the convention is important, because sometimes people have told me that they've come and they have connected with people in their own town they didn't know existed, and then they became part of a community. But definitely joining a local community, a club or something is really valuable, not only because you have somebody to hang out with, but because you are now a part of something bigger.
Yeah, and you feel like you can get a critique from somebody. You can be inspired by somebody. You find somebody that's about your level to hang out with and exchange ideas. Because usually, I remember, when you finish college, and you've had your teachers, you've had your fellow students who are all, in your corner and giving you feedback and stuff. All of a sudden, you're out in the real world, and almost all artists are really by themselves. And so, to have some, like you said, the community is a huge part of it.
Well, a lot of people are coming into plein air painting in the back end of their careers.
Yes.
I hear from people every day because of the Plein Air podcast, and I hear a lot of people who are in positions in companies, in businesses, a lot of professionals, a lot of doctors, and a lot of everybody really, who they're like, I can't wait, I got another 5 years or another 10 years, and I want to do it. And then we find a lot of people who are retirement age that want to do it, and they love the lifestyle. They like to be outside, but they don't want to be, exercising as much as they used to. They want to be with other people. It's social. They
don't want to take up golf.
Right. They want to travel. They want to have something that is using their creative side, because a lot of people had that creative side. Maybe they did some art when they were kids or in college, and then they kind of went off to something else.
They raised a family, and
Right.
reality came in, and maybe their kids have gone away to college, and now they're, hey, I've got this time. I used to love to draw or paint, and I'm gonna take it up again.
Yeah, and we welcome him into the community. And by the way, there are hundreds of young people too, and I was so encouraged. I was poking around on Instagram last night and learning about new artists, and because I'm always looking for people to feature in the magazine, and found just gobs and gobs of really brilliant artists that I was not aware of. Some of them are, pretty young, and so what's nice about this is that as a community, when we get together, you've got every end of the spectrum. Last year we had Kyle Ma on the faculty who was 17 at the time or 18, and then you've got people all the way up and people in all stages of lives who are attending, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Kind of brings everybody together. We may not have anything in common otherwise, but we have painting in common.
There's more than that, though. If it's plein air, you also have being outdoors.
Right.
And so the two things that you have a love of nature, of some sort of open space, usually, parks and whatnot. So most of us are pretty, can be involved with, trying to save the environment and being very conscious of environmental causes.
So how do you do that? What do you do to save the environment related to painting?
Pick up your trash, number one. That's one of my big pet peeves, and artists don't do that. But in our backyard, Mount Diablo is this beautiful icon. There's a group called Save Mount Diablo that I always donate work to their causes and stuff, and it makes me feel good. And it's they're trying to protect lands on either side of the mountain, so they. I won't say so they don't get it developed, but maybe even the projects that are proposed might be lessened, and there might be hiking trails through their property and stuff.
Well, and paintings can be used as awareness, but also there are groups that are going out and documenting the lands, knowing they're going to be developed someday, and now you have these paintings to show the before and after.
Just the other day, in fact, the piece that I'm working on right now for the video. A woman pulled over and said, "Do you know about this property?" And I go, "No, I've painted here half a dozen times this side, and I've painted that side another half dozen times." She goes, "It's proposed for big windmills."
Oh no!
And so I kind of feel like I am documenting what's here now, and she's going, we're trying to fight it and not have this guy put these huge things, but it would be acres and acres of this. But it also gave me my title for the painting, Before the Winds. So
perfect.
I thought that was, and it was a breezy day, so I thought, okay, that's it kind of fit.
So one thing I always like to ask is, we all have these experiences when we're painting. I don't usually sell my studies because they're memories for me, because every painting is a memory of being somewhere or being with someone like you. But there's sometimes things that have occurred when we're painting that are really memorable. Does anything come to mind for you of a special moment painting or something that occurred that may not have been the norm?
A good story or
a bad one?
Okay. My helicopter rescue. Winter painting is probably the most wild one. I have a group of artists that we go. Bill Cohn and myself put a group together called the Granite Group, and I think we're on our 16th year of going to the Eastern Sierras to paint.
On my bucket list, by the way.
You want to join our group?
Absolutely.
Or the helicopter ride is on your bucket list. Anyway, it's a. We've had 40 artists go with us over the years now. Bill and I are the only two that have gone every single year. And we were coming out of Garnet Lake 4 years ago, had finished. It was a great trip. And I still remember telling Bill that was awesome. We never, no one's ever really gotten hurt. No one's, we've hardly had a blister. We've had a couple of sick artists, but that's been it. And we hike half a mile out of there. We're 9 miles away from the trailhead. And I'm not doing anything stupid. It's a really steep trail, and I stepped down. I started to fall. and I put my foot out to stop my fall, and my kneecap ended up halfway up my thigh.
Oh,
and it was
excruciating pain.
It felt like I had been shot, which is basically what happened. And I'm just lying there, and Susie Baker was on the trip, and she had a satellite radio. The first time anybody's ever brought that, and they, she puts out an SOS, and make a long story short, the search and rescue had to come and get me, and 4 hours later, a helicopter came, and they had to drop her. They couldn't even land it. It was so steep.
Well, if you would have not had that satellite phone, they would have had...
I might still be there.
Probably, yeah. You would have survived a couple of winters.
Yeah.
Well, and that's Edgar Payne country. That's some of the most beautiful painting, undeveloped, and just absolutely gorgeous up there.
It is, and I just saw one recently. In fact, I think you posted one from Iceberg Lake.
Yeah.
And it was a painting I'd never seen of his, and really I stood right at that spot. And he used to change quite a bit of his landscapes. He would add, if he felt like another mountain needed to be over here or a lake, what he painted was exactly what he saw there.
So he wasn't moving things around?
He didn't, on that particular one. I don't think his plein air paintings, he moved stuff around, but when he went to the studio, he was not afraid to say, I need another ridge over here or something.
Well, that's an important lesson for painters to understand that you can move things.
You can.
Yeah. Well,
he did move mountains, though.
So what have we not talked about that we probably should have?
Having fun.
Yeah? Are you having fun?
I do. I teach quite a bit. Everything, I wouldn't say everything to me is a joke, but our family lifestyle is very lighthearted, and my teaching is lighthearted, and I take very seriously what I do, but I typically laugh through most of it. I have a great time painting, and I love being with my friends when we paint. It's always fun when we start off when we're making jokes, and or we're, especially the Granite group, we're, God, this is so fabulous, can you believe this? This is awesome. And then like 20 minutes later, and maybe we're all chatting, maybe 30 minutes later, it's quiet. And nobody's saying anything because you're into the moment and you're concentrating on what you're painting. So it's painting's just, and especially plein air painting, there's a real love and joy for that.
Yeah, pretty special. Well, Paul, this has been wonderful getting to know you a little bit further, and of course we've known each other for a long time, but never in the studio together.
Yeah, this is great. I'm sorry I did not get the memo about wearing a sport coat, because I would have brought one, but...
No, it's a power thing. If I told you, then we would be equals, but if I have the sport coat on, then I reign over you.
You feel stronger.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you, Paul.
Great chatting with you. You owe me a margarita, though.
Oh, okay, so I'll get you a margarita at the plein air convention.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
There will be one waiting in your room.
With my name on it.
It might be melted. You want frozen? You want salt?
Salt and on the rocks, please.
Okay.
Thank
Terrific. Well, thank you, Paul Kratter. I'm Eric Rhodes, and this has been Interview with the Artist. What a great guy. What a nice man. A terrific painter, too. Fun to be around. Mr. Comedy. Lots of fun stuff with this guy. Anyway, that's Paul Kratter, and it's called Mastering Trees, and you can learn more about the full-length video at lilyartvideo.com. Remember, there's a special discount for today only, and it's in the comments section. Reward yourself with a Christmas present. Just saying, all right? You're going to have some time coming up during the holidays. You're going to need some stuff to watch. Anyway, want to thank you for watching today. Remember that we have a free video for you. It's called 97 Tips, 97 Amazing Painting Secrets from the World's Best Artists, and it's at 97tips.com. I'm Eric Rhodes. Happy holidays to you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Landscape painters love trees. It's one of Mother Nature's greatest gifts to artists. But when your trees are wrong, your viewer can tell immediately. When you're painting trees, you're painting a portrait of a tree. Every tree is different, each with its own characteristics and unique colors. For something that seems like it should be simple, trees can often be a source of frustration. Compose poorly and the entire painting will be off the mark. So, to guide you through the process of understanding how to paint trees, we sought out a painter who has done beautiful paintings of just about every kind of tree. To really understand how to better paint trees, turn to artist Paul Kratter. In this instructional video, Mastering Trees, Paul will show you how to do just that. A longtime illustrator and a plein air painter since 2002, Paul has a strong foundation in design and composition. There's nobody better to show you how using strong graphic shapes is a key factor when painting trees. Paint along with Paul as he shows you his simple and logical system for giving trees more character. He'll show you his steps to make trees easier and use them to create a solid foundation. Never again will you shy away from including certain trees because you're just not sure how you'll pull it off. Your trees will be believable, have the proper proportion, right light and shadow, perfect sky holes, and feel like they are realistic. In addition to a complete start-to-finish painting, we've included a bonus video with Paul showing you how to paint a variety of individual types of trees, because you have to approach them all differently.
And again, it really is the silhouetted shape that's always important.
Paul Kratter simplifies the process of painting trees and landscapes. His positive, light-hearted teaching style will encourage you to relax, gain confidence, and have fun with your painting. Available on DVD and digitally to view on your computer, tablet, or phone. Order Mastering Trees with Paul Kratter today and be on your way to painting better trees and better landscapes.